beef, freedom, and a few other things. Welcome to Law and Society. Today I'm going to talk about a bunch of things, but really it boils down to how Donald Trump is undermining and attacking America's infrastructure, whether it be agriculture or our constitutional rights. Donald Trump's keep attacking our rights and our country from within. And remember how Donald Trump tariffed China, and then China stopped buying American soybeans? And then where did China go to buy their soybeans? To Argentina. And what has Donald Trump done with Argentina recently? Despite the fact that Argentina swooped in and took America's market of soybeans from China the minute it was convenient. Donald Trump decided that he wanted to extend the government of Argentina, that is being ruled by a dictator, Milei, who is Donald Trump's friend. Donald Trump decided to bail out this Argentinian economy that is tanking by giving them, $20 billion to the government. And then there is another ask for a $20 billion investment, both with B's, by the way, not M's, billions, 1,000 millions. So 2,000 million to the Argentinian government, and talks of 2,000 million more to go to Argentina's private sector. But banks will not give Argentina the money unless the U.S. guarantees that loan, which means that the American people, the taxpayer, is going to bail out Argentina to the tune of $40 billion, which is $4,000 million. Think about that. And while that is happening, Donald Trump said that he's looking into buying beef from Argentina to lower the cost of beef that has gone up month after month by, I think, 8% or so every month. And in order to stop it, he wants to get beef from Argentina. Well, Argentina is having the same problem about diseases, bovine diseases that include the screwworm, and then there's the foot and mouth disease, which is different from the foot in mouth disease that Republicans currently are going through. The foot and mouth disease is actually a disease that impacts bovines, cows, and therefore make them non-fungible. They're no longer of any use because they are diseased. And, as this is happening, Nebraska's Farm Bureau president and other farm bureaus and farmers, cattle ranchers have come up, and states that are heavy on cattle agriculture have come out and protested against this, and they don't want Argentinian beef to disrupt the American markets more than it already has. And Ben Meiselas from Midas Touch talks about this farm called the Merriweather Farm. And they are talking, they put up a post on the internet saying, "Dear Trump, we love you and support you, but your suggestion to buy beef from Argentina to stabilize beef prices would be an absolute betrayal of the American cattle rancher." And Ben goes on to say, what are you doing, people? You realize he's destroying you. He hates you. You get that. He absolutely hates you and thinks you're dumb and stupid. And that's what Ben is saying to this MAGA Merriweather Farms that is looking at catastrophe coming their way like catastrophe has hit the soy farmers of America, and they still will, remain proudly MAGA while talking about Donald Trump, not hurting them personally. And this is a sort of, it made me think about abusive relationships. For a time, while I was in law school, I interned as a domestic violence liaison for the prosecutor's office in the city that I was in. And what I saw was that victims get stuck in this cycle and they can't get themselves out. They make excuses because they have become codependent and somehow rely on that abuse to feel something. Whether it is love or hate, it doesn't matter. They see it as love, and they still love and refuse to go against their abusers, knowing that they will be abused again. They'll still make excuses and say, oh, maybe we went wrong somewhere. We're not going to testify. That person loves us. And I saw that so many times, and it was frustrating. And you couldn't show this frustration to the victims because in my instance, there was this one lady who came back 3 times in the course of 3 months on charges of domestic violence because she had to call the cops on her husband beating her. But she would not go against him. And that's what it made me think about. This inertia. Like with Merriweather Farms, it's a result of repeated abusive language, inundation, and fear, invoking hatred without a cause based on lies. And now MAGA doesn't know what to do. They can't believe the truth because they're afraid of what other MAGAs will say to them and do to them. They can't distance themselves from Donald because they're afraid of losing community. And they know some of their deep-seated hatreds won't find a place except for in Donald Trump's MAGA. Don't forget that. Don't forget that racism, bigotry, sexism, and a general hatred towards different people drives the basic core of MAGA. And that is not going anywhere. And I talked about that in the previous episode. Even if they feel the pinch in their pockets. But there's a limit to that pinch. There's a limit to that abuse. If you become comatose or if you are in a life-threatening situation, that's when your inertia has to break. That's when your numbness has to give way to feeling something. At some point, MAGA has to accept that they've been betrayed. How they will react at that time remains to be seen. But Donald Trump has thus far successfully divided and conquered the American populace. And that was evident in his lunch that he was giving to GOP senators, talking about having no Democrats there. A president of the United States is the president of every single American, not just Republicans. But what Donald Trump is inherently doing is tearing apart the American people by dividing us at every single news conference, every single opportunity he gets. He becomes divisive. All the way from shitting on people who don't agree with him to screwing over people who voted for him. Donald Trump is going on his attacks, and he's not going to stop. So the question is, when will those people who voted for him realize they've been betrayed and finally speak out? Some are, but most aren't. And what do non-MAGA have to do? We have to keep our voices up. We have to keep going to the rallies. We have to keep talking about what Donald Trump is doing. We need to inform our fellow Americans about what is happening. So, and I will move on now to a few other topics, But each of these topics is about raising awareness about what is going on. Like, this is an offshoot, but I was reading National Security Presidential Memorandum 7 all over again because it really is a dangerous, dangerous document. And it's a memorandum, and Donald Trump mentions the anti-Christianity sentiment that this memorandum seeks to vilify. And that brings up the question that is an executive memorandum by a president of the United States talking about Christianity, targeting anti-Christianity. So if you are a Hindu, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Buddhist, if you are Jewish, if you are a Jain, if you are a Sikh, if you are a Zoroastrian, if you are pagan, if you are agnostic, if you are atheist, all of these people all of a sudden become a target of the government. And that is an attack on the First Amendment of the United States. And I really wanted to bring that out and tell you about that. Another thing that has happened that is gut-wrenching is Donald Trump's taking away funding for special education, federal funding for special education. Now, I have a personal quick story here. When I moved to the United States, I started out as a freshman in high school, and there was a guy in my classes. They were the advanced placement classes, and we'll go by, his name was Jay, and his brother's name was N. While Jay was a top student and ended up being a valedictorian of our graduating class, N was a special needs, differently abled person. And N was able to come to school because of the special education funding that funded for special ed teachers and special ed guardians, like one of my other classmates' mothers who would literally wheel or hold N's hands as he would go to the different classes. And I didn't have any classes with N because he was in the normal track, and he went on to graduate with us, and Jay went on to becoming a valedictorian, therefore changing the trajectory of their low-income family's future because of the special education programs funded by the federal government, because of the food assistance programs funded by the federal government. Because of these governmental programs, Jay became a valedictorian, and N was proudly able to walk the stage on his high school graduation. That is what Donald Trump is taking away from our fellow citizens. That is what Donald Trump is taking away from people like N. That is what Donald Trump is taking away from people like Jay. And I am absolutely disgusted by it. I'm disgusted by the fact that this regime can quietly disenfranchise those who need help. And we get to see how successful they become if they have just a little bit of help from the government. A little bit of help. Just one free lunch. Just somebody to walk you to a class. And the government is taking that away. And while there's this assault happening on the American people, we just learned that one of the January 6th pardoned insurrectionists who was violent has threatened Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of killing him. He now faces state felony charges, and hopefully it goes through with state felony charges so that Donald Trump cannot pardon him again. But you see, this is not the first time that one of the people Donald Trump pardoned, one of the people who participated in the insurrection that Donald Trump incited, goes out and commits other crimes. This has happened before. The FBI is still investigating. I'm not going to give them any credit here. Representative Hakeem Jeffries said, threats of violence will not stop us from showing up, standing up, and speaking up for the American people. And that's where we stand as the Democratic Party. That's where we stand as Americans. That attacking us, threatening us, mocking us, none of that will work. We won't threaten you, but we will mock you back. We will stump you with our words. We will not raise a hand. And the masses will win against this authoritarian regime. And those of you who think that you are in the majority and Donald Trump's ideology is the American majority, we just have to wait and see until the elections of the midterms, hoping that they will be free and fair. And if Donald Trump continues the attacks that he continues, I can't see that even gerrymandering would help the Republican Party, unless it is drawn in a way that is humanly impossible for the populace to overcome that unconstitutional redistricting that's happening in states like Texas. Now I want to talk a little bit about Ukraine. Donald Trump, and I will say this again, so far Zelensky came and talked with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump said that if you don't accept the peace deal, Russia will destroy you. Essentially using Putin's talking points. And now, after Zelensky's meeting with Trump at the White House, the meeting that was supposed to happen in Budapest with Putin and Trump has been put on hold. What's happening here, and I'll tell you again, is Donald Trump is just pulling us along and stringing Ukraine along, and Donald Trump will never help Ukraine. Ukraine needs to understand that. So does the European Union. So do the NATO partners other than the United States. And they need to take the lead in how they defend Ukraine and Europe from Russian aggression. Donald Trump is not going to help you, Vladimir Zelensky. Donald Trump is not going to help you, Europe. You need to believe that, and you need to move forward with that in consideration. Now, I want to go talk about the White House demolition that has really, it's infuriating. It's sad that he just, without any check or balance, just destroyed the East Wing of the White House. And we have all already collectively forgotten about the Rose Garden and all the gold in the Oval Office. Remember how he paved the Rose Garden and turned it into a Mar-a-Lago patio? And now he has demolished the East Wing to then build a ballroom that is being funded by his oligarchs. Do you see how Donald Trump is incrementally encroaching and turning our White House into his palace? What he is doing shows that he has no intention of leaving, and that should worry everybody. That should include the Supreme Court being worried about it, and for them to prepare now to shoot down any of Donald Trump or MAGA's challenges to the 22nd Amendment when, not if, it arrives before them. Because if he's going this way, it is very likely that he will just want to stay after losing. Well, he's not going to be in office. He can't run for office based on the 22nd Amendment, but he's not going to want to leave. And the transfer of power problem will surface again. Maybe it won't surface as badly if the person who is running the Republican ticket wins, but we are at a place where we don't even know where that's going to go, how Donald Trump is going to hand over power. People like Donald Trump don't like to hand over power. Then there's the shutdown, right? the shutdown has caused MAGA to go berserk. They're having a meltdown, and even more so after the protests, after the No Kings protests, they are in a frenzy because they realize that if the government is not open by November 1st, that food assistance programs across the country will not have any money. It will go defunct. They know that Obamacare subsidies will expire and Americans will see their premiums skyrocket, and they'll realize that what Democrats have been saying for so long is actually the hard truth, and what Republicans and MAGA have been doing for so long is hoodwinking the American people, lying to the American people, and destroying the safety nets that keep American people afloat. And while it's happening with the shutdown and an economic attack on the American people, it appears that Donald Trump's ICE has descended on Lower Manhattan on Canal Street to go after vendors who sell counterfeit goods. So far, Donald Trump's ICE has gone into New York, LA, Chicago, Portland, Washington, D.C., Memphis, Los Angeles. Now he's talking about planning on going to San Francisco. Just so you know about San Francisco, nakedness is allowed in that city. So expect to see a lot of naked protesting if Donald Trump decides that he wants to go and harass San Francisco. It's not going to be that easy. That place is a birthplace of freedom and liberty. That place for the gay community. That place is a place of strength, of unity of the people, despite the fact that it has now turned into a Silicon Valley sort of shining city on the hill. But it has its problems, but those problems are not going to be solved by ICE going in there and doing what ICE is doing in other cities. So in New York, the operation appeared to lead to at least 4 detentions according to witnesses. And I've put everything in the reference box of what I'm saying, so you can please check the reference box, go to the news articles and read them. With a sight of dozens of masked agents descending on the edge of Tribeca, making for a visible display of force by the Trump administration in the streets of Manhattan. A witness said, "Nobody's identifying themselves, explaining there's no due process going on. It's just straight to the back of a van if you are African and on Canal." Another one noticed television crews amassing on Canal Street and spotted unmarked government vehicles, and he ran down Broadway to tell vendors, "Yo, ICE is here, go home, go home." He shouted as he ran down Broadway, pointing to cars with tinted windows and waiting federal agents. ICE agents briefly handcuffed this person who said he was a U.S. citizen before releasing him and returning his belongings. "Handbags, handbags," one vendor exclaimed. "Get them before the police get them." Today, an ICE officers, then we go on to abuse of ICE officers. Today, an ICE officer, I think this happened in LA. ICE officer's weapon was discharged and it shot a U.S. Marshal and another person because they were using the weapon to bang on the window. Like, you see how ill-trained ICE officers are. Then you have the raids in Chicago that have caused the businesses to cool down. Trump administration's crackdown in the city has led to more customers and workers staying home, businesses say, leading to lower revenue and worries of wider economic repercussions. So you see that Donald Trump's actions, his ICE actions, are having economic effects. If you have the economic effects talking about how immigration, is having economic effect. That's what the Bureau of Labor and Statistics is saying. And Donald's own government is saying that what Donald's government is doing, regime, sorry, not government, is undermining our economic safety. And then the last topic here that I think is equally important, last but definitely not the least, is release the Jeffrey Epstein files, Speaker Mike Johnson. And the reason why he has yet to swear in Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva is because she would be the 218th signature on the discharge petition that would force the release of the Epstein files. And you have MAGA coming out, Mike Johnson coming out saying there's nothing in the James Comer coming out saying we've reviewed it and there's nothing in those files about Donald Trump. Well, sir, if that's the case, why are you withholding it from the American people? It's not like Epstein is alive. It's not like it's going to harm him in any way. But it definitely is causing the survivors pain, because the survivor of Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators, those pedophiles, these survivors need to have their stories heard about how those pedophiles abused and assaulted these girls, these young girls. And by the way, Adelita Grijalva has sued. The state of Arizona has sued the House of Representatives and claimed that Representative-elect Grijalva cannot perform her duties that represents 800,000+ Americans in her district because of the fact that Mike Johnson has arbitrarily held the swearing in, and it asks the court to assign somebody else to swear her in or to compel Mike Johnson to swear her in. That's where we are in the country. And there's so much news that I had to pack all of this into 1 half-hour segment, but I want you to be aware of it. I want you to know that all of these issues are happening at the same time. And every time before I start an episode, I ask myself why. Because there's so many people who, insult me and I barely get any views, but I'm not doing this to please you. I'm doing this to inform you. I'm also doing this to keep a record for myself and for future generations, however minute they may be, that adds to the chorus of voices speaking out against this fascist regime that we are under right now. And I will keep coming back at any point that I think it's necessary for us to become aware of the abuses of an authoritarian regime that is hell-bent on destroying American democracy. I still have to talk to you about state sovereignty, and I still have to find the mind space to read those opinions. Wouldn't be surprised if the case of, say, state sovereignty that was raised in the Illinois case by Judge April Perry will go up to the Supreme Court before I get to read about it. But I will read about it, and I will talk to you more about the scholarly discussion of state sovereignty and how Donald Trump is infringing on state sovereignty and thereby violating the 10th Amendment of the United States. 10th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Okay, with that said, thank you so much for listening. Stick around, please share, check out my other videos, please like, and please subscribe. I'll talk to you soon.